Hey, what's going on, guys? It's good to see your beautiful faces. I reserved this channel, Mike Glover Stories, just like Mike Glover channel, to do content, but this is unedited. Typically, I don't cut anything. I might correct for color, might correct for sound, so it sounds a little bit better. But that's about it. Minimal effort as far as the editing process goes, but hope to bring you value in any way that I can. Profoundly, what's going on with the cartel, also with the Defense Department and the things that we're doing national security wise as very deliberate strategies is the reason I want to talk to you guys today. You guys know I founded Fieldcraft Survival, being ran right now by a great team, and I've moved on from that. Most of what I've done media wise for the last few years has been this kind of advise. I always look at like advise assist, right? Like the Green Beret mission. And I always want to be a value add in as far as my experiences and seeing this pattern repeat itself, utilizing any experiences or any technical or tactical experience that I have to offer some form of advice. And typically it's been in the realm of this, preparedness. I wrote a book about it. More along the lines of kind of recently and moving forward, I also want to advise you guys on these type of things, geopolitical issues, national security issues, and especially domestic preparedness issues that you could tap into. Craft Survival is a resource for education and products. American Contingency is a community resource. It's still on AmericanContingency.com. Both organizations which I founded with profound purpose for specific things that were going on in the world. Fieldcraft, when I was in Pakistan and dealing with watching case officers, protecting case officers, but also seeing things like earthquakes that were natural disasters where Americans in that country, for sure locals in that country, had no plan to be prepared. And so I kind of migrated from that transition into that job full time, as well as American Contingency that I started during the BLM Antifa riots, when I started to see that local communities were being trespassed, intruded on by outsiders who, using their excuse and ideology, were burning down businesses, violently attacking people, and for sure we know now post murdering people. How many people were held accountable? Not many. I don't think they ever prosecuted anybody for burning down black businesses in Atlanta, Georgia, which 50% of the businesses in Atlanta are black, and many of those were burned down. So moving forward, I've been doing YouTube kind of big picture stuff with a focus on distilled content and Patreon. My focus hasn't necessarily been preparedness. There are chapters of that. For example, last week on my Patreon, we did a bit on first aid and a refresher on tourniquet application, because no matter how high speed your capability, your gear, your level of training, refreshing the basics in first aid or any basics across the spectrum are important. More so, the effort has been on kind of distilling information, especially that relates to your individual preparedness, and also preparing you physically, mentally with health and wellness tips, whether it's supplementation that I focus on with Wolf 21, different patterns, habits, hacks, things that you could do to improve your overall health and wellness. It's very well known across social media that I'm dealing with legal issues surrounding my children, which I won't get into. One, that specific circumstance involves my children, so personally, it's nobody's business. Where it is your business is what I can give you in advice so you never end up in that situation in the first place. Albeit I'm in the middle of it, fighting for my children, there are many lessons learned that I learn nearly every day on what to do when this type of thing happens to you, and more to follow. The rest of this conversation, I'm going to commit to just what's going on with the cartel and how surprised I was to learn that 2 Mexican nationals flew into Denver, Colorado on March 25th from Mexico. They landed with marching orders, a mission. That mission was to purchase a vehicle to utilize as a supply vehicle to load up 180,000 rounds of 7.62. There is debate right now whether or not it was all 308, which is 7.62, but obviously one's in inches and one's in the metric system. 7.62 by 51 is the same round used in 7.62 American, Belgian, FN made machine guns that the American service member uses. 240 Bravo, your M60 machine gun. There's many variants, Mark 48s, the list goes on. Those are really the reasons I think you would buy in bulk that much ammo. Why would you buy 308 cartridges for a bolt gun times 180,000? Now, what they're saying is, at least the news is saying that 30 of the boxes, which is 30,000 rounds, is 7.62. And I think what they meant to say is it was 7.62 by 39, which would be a shorter neck down 30 cal round, which is an AK-47 round. Regardless, let's just set that aside and just call it 150 boxes of 1,000 rounds. You're talking about 150,000 rounds of 7.62 by 51. 308. Now, most people think 308. When you say 308, I think about my M24 sniper weapon system, SWS, long action Remington 700, a little bit more dialed in to be used as a sniper rifle, but it's a common hunting round, and it's the weapon that I use for basic rifle marksmanship in sniper school, getting into gas guns and 300 Win Mag. It also is a common national match round. It's a round that you'll find in national match fashion for accurized rifles, precision rifles. It's not as common as it used to be because 308 is just not known, especially in mass production, as being a highly accurate round. It has, I believe it goes transonic around 700 plus meters. So it still could reach out consistently and touch bad guys, but there are better options nowadays. From 6.5 Creedmoor, name it. There's various reasons why you would not go with 308, which is what makes me think even more that it'd be bought in bulk to be used for machine guns, because all you got to do is link it. You're not going to find a lot of pre-linked ammunition on the open market. And that's what's most surprising, because these two guys went to Salt Lake City after they bought a van, loaded up the van with all of that ammo that they bought commercially, which is very concerning to me. Like, support American-made businesses, but if you're an American-made ammo manufacturer and you're selling 180,000 rounds of 7.62, helping them load up a van full of it, and they're both Mexican nationals, which I imagine you would need a driver's license at a minimum, American driver's license at a minimum, American identification in order to purchase ammo, period, but especially in that amount. And maybe they did, maybe they or had fake documents, whatever it was, but I would still suspect with that much ammo, there would be questions asked. Look, I personally think if it's an American citizen, it's nobody's business. I come up on the radar for buying more than 2 handguns in a day and a specific amount of ammunition, which is unknown to me, but for sure you'll ping the ATS radar. But 2 Mexican nationals could buy 180,000 rounds? Concerning. So let's get past that. Their mission was to send it and drop it off. They think, according to one guy that was rolled up, one of the 2, they were brother-in-laws, that their end state was to drive it to Pueblo in a link up, which means they were being given instructions from a third party that was giving them specific guidance. Who would that third party be? For sure, the cartel, a terrorist organization. So these guys were facilitating terrorist operations. They weren't just going to bring 180,000 rounds to Pueblo for a fun shoot or a day at the range. They were doing it from instructions from Mexico and delivering it to Pueblo for a specific reason. I personally think that specific reason was to either, one, disseminate it to other cartel members across the nation that might be using gas gun versions of 308, which are semi-automatic 308 guns, AR-10s basically, or it's likely the most dangerous course of action mixed with the most likely, which is that ammo was bought to not deliver into Mexico. It might have been bought to break down and, cached and hidden and then brought across the border in chunks. But the worst case scenario of that would obviously be it was bought to be linked for an attack, an inside attack. Guys, we're at war with the cartel now. Like I tell you before, the titles and authorizations have already been approved, which means we're doing, for example, as advertised on open source news, lots of ISR, which is imagery, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions using aircraft with signal intelligence capabilities on the border and likely overflights in Mexico. Why? Because we're developing target decks. Why? To kill or capture cartel members with indirect, direct, unmanned, manned, using a joint task force, likely Joint Special Operations Command and its action arms to kill bad guys. Already, likely, we're utilizing covert and clandestine operations with Special Activities Command, paramilitary operations officers with National Mission Force assets to include operators from Joint Special Operations Command. Regimental Recon Company, RRC, is likely involved. Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 are for sure involved. That should make the cartel change its tactics, techniques, every procedure, because they know they're being targeted. And eventually, if authorization happens, eventually it will, but if it happens soon, then they know they're going to be sitting ducks. So what would they do preemptively, knowing their backs are against the wall? They'd fight. They're not dummies. Cartel leadership, which I've been briefed on, are very smart. A lot of people think cartel and they think low-level gangbanger who's schwacking people. Those low-level kids being paid in cash and drugs and cars, they are low IQ because they're the ones being manipulated. It's like the guy who clocks himself off. That's not the AQ leader is the guy running the managers who are recruiting, assessing, recruiting, and training low IQ dudes to blow themselves up. The leadership at the top of the cartels, which have a very robust business plan to include drugs, fentanyl immersion, which is why you have fentanyl now causing more deaths to Americans as the leading cause of death for men, I believe between the ages of 18 and 34, and higher addictive properties, which is partially why fentanyl is introduced, to make more Americans hooked. You think those guys are hooked? They're not. Again, they're operating like joint force commanders running task force are operating in tactical operations centers. And they have a hierarchy, a chain of command, a chain of custody, a logistics train, and a lot of consumers here in America. Human trafficking, a robust component of their business plan to include moving people, including from every country across the world, selling and recruiting, marketing across the globe. If you come to Mexico, we'll facilitate bringing you across the border, which is still taking place. Despite the numbers being grossly reduced, it's still taking place. Sex, human trafficking, using young men and women to be sex trafficked across the border, to be used and sold into prostitution because of the consumer here in America. Weapons and all kinds of shenanigans. They are deeply rooted. If you've seen that show Ozarks, I mean, that's just a Hollywood glimpse at the romantic part of it. It goes all the way down to beneath the barrel, where entire troves of people are being killed, dismembered, or killed after being tortured, dismembered, and put into 55-gallon drums and dissolved in a multitude of chemicals. So we're talking about really bad people that are more funded, better equipped, and have longevity in the industry and ideology more so than any terrorist organization on the planet, because now they're terrorists. So ultimately, what does that mean? Well, this report, which happened from March 25th last month, being told now a day or two ago on the media, and select smaller media organizations, not mainstream. You haven't seen a lot of this in mainstream. Imagine the ones that aren't getting caught. And that's what I'm concerned about. Because there's not enough FBI, ICE, DEA, ATF, CIA personnel in the government to be able to really down focus and allocate the assets that are going to be able to deal with this and manage this. Okay, Mike, you've scared the crap out of me. So what do? The way that you think about how you prepare is typical to the coined term, self-defense. You know it. You hashtag it, your EDC and the waistband, all the cool, sexy individual things. When you think about personal protection and self-defense, that's singleton lone operator stuff. But even in the military, when you're a singleton or a lone operator, you have, most of the time, a really robust network supporting you. The Rangers used to hate me because we'd go out at night and do an op, maybe 2 or 3 ops, depending on if we were getting flexed around the country in Afghanistan this rotation. And I had a separate operation that I was doing, which I can't go into the details, but basically I was looking like an Afghan. I was with the Afghan partnering unit guy that was my interpreter, but also an operator. I had 2 Rangers in the back seat that were part of their sniper reconnaissance organization. I forget what battalion, it might have been 1st Battalion. And then they were in burqas doing navigation, primary and alternate. And then I had 2 Rangers behind them that had machine guns in the back of the van. And so when I did operations like that, I had a ton of QRF on standby, a platoon of Rangers, or sitting by strikers or whatever vehicles we had at the time, Panders, that were on standby to QRF us just in case we couldn't handle a individual gunfight. The point of that is often we think about ourselves in the individual fight and not a more robust fight. You're carrying an EDC pistol in the waistband for the gas station scenario, the fight at the restaurant, the road rage incident. But have you ever thought about personal protection? Or more importantly, how you protect your family when it's a complex attack and you don't have enough time to wait on SWAT teams to arrive, mobilize, and infill. You don't have that time. What do you do when the threat isn't a guy who goes rogue at his place of work, which is the majority of mass shootings in America, and instead it's a Mexican cartel member with a .240 machine gun who's on a bipod using grazing fire techniques to create as many casualties as possible. And he even has an AG or an AB, an ammo bearer or an ammo gunner who's changing and swapping barrels because they're a little trained. We haven't been faced with that type of combatant in this country. And not only that, but we haven't really prepared for that type of thing because the reality is it doesn't happen. My question to you is what happens when it starts to happen? Or there's a possibility based on intelligence and information that, again, shapes operations, preparations. What happens when it does start to shape out that way? I would not ignore the fact that 2 Mexican nationals were just rolled up transporting 180,000 rounds of 7.62 to an unknown location and person. We might know all that information, but it might never be publicly released. And you know who's going to pay for that ultimately is us if we're not paying attention to the symptoms. And guys, I am not great at a lot of things. I'm mediocre or just good. It's that whole, Green Beret analogy of saying that you're a jack of all trades, master of none. You just got a lot of skill sets. You don't have time to master anything. I am a master of strategic planning. I was the guy in Ranger School and Special Forces training and operational training that really could digest and understand both operations orders, warning orders, troop leading procedures, the military decision-making process. So in a nutshell, what I'm telling you to do is it's time to level up and think about these potential courses of action, because my fear is based on what I'm seeing, based on the information that I'm getting, is if it happens, it's going to happen big. And if we're not prepared, we will be victims. And so I wanted to take the time to articulate that to you. I have more content on the horizon talking about these things and just laying it out for you guys. I don't have all the answers. There's plenty of subject matter experts that are out there that will help you walk the path, get technical and tactical training. Phil Craft, again, is a good resource. Got guys like Tony Cowden, all these GBRS, all these epic human beings who have profound backgrounds that could technically and tactically train you. I'm out of that business and am completely satisfied with providing you information and education via my suck. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks for all the support, for all the things that I've been going through. Thank you for the prayers. It means a lot. I am doing a preaching to the choir, which is, I'm not a preacher, I'm not a pastor, but just me talking about life, God, mindset every Sunday on my Patreon. That's open to all members if you're interested. That's free members included. My link for my Patreon's down below. Thanks, guys.